Okay, I'm back. I don't know why I forgot my headset, but hopefully audio sounds a bit better. Okay, so we were talking about risk tolerance. So just to recap, it's important that you understand your risk tolerance and you figure out exactly what works for you. Like I said, I'm at a 9 and 8 level out of 10 risk tolerance, so I take a lot of risk. But again, I built in a lot of checks and balances in my finances where I live below my means. And so if I lose the money, it's not going to break my bank in a sense. Not saying I can't afford to lose it, but my point is it's not going to kill me. I can ride the ebb and flow. I can ride the wave of a stock or a portfolio going down. And then, of course, you have to decide whether that works for you. There's obviously ways or less risky investments. That's where your risk tolerance will be at a maybe 2 or 3 or 4. And so your investments will be in more secured or safe type of investments. They're not going to have as high of a yield in terms of a percentage on your return or your return, like the level of return you get on it. It will probably be less, but at the end of the day, your money is more safe. So you got to decide what you want to do. Risk tolerance is first and foremost about your mental agility to be able to handle your money, seeing it disappear sometimes. So if you can't handle that, then definitely go for a lower risk tolerance. And hey, at the end of the day, don't worry about what I'm doing. Don't worry that I'm making 10% and you're only doing 5%. Don't worry about it. It's all about how you feel. It's all about what makes you comfortable. Never look at what other people have. Never look at, and this is just a life lesson. Always do you. Focus on you. Don't worry about what other people are doing. Everyone has their different situations. Some people, they may have the nice car, the nice house, and it's all on credit. And they're living their house poor and they're just trying to keep up with the Joneses. So you have no idea what someone's going through. So it's always important that you just focus on you and you just keep zero focus, laser focus on what you want to do, your future for your family, and ultimately what kind of person you want to be in the future. Do you want to be working till you're 65 years old? Do you want to relax or retire at 50 or 55? I don't know. Some people retired already. I'm in my 40s. I'm still working. It all depends on what you want your future to be. So that definitely is part and parcel of your risk tolerance. There's a reality if you want to be retired at 40 years old and you have a risk tolerance of 2, that's kind of unrealistic because you're not taking any risk at all with a risk tolerance of 1. If you want to retire early, then you might have to consider taking a risk tolerance of maybe 6 to 10, right? And again, I'm by no means a financial expert. I'm just giving out numbers just to give you a little bit of perspective. All right. So the next thing we want to talk about is time horizon. And dovetailing into what we just talked about 2 seconds ago, we'll emphasize the importance of considering the investment and the time horizon when selecting the assets. So again, if you are trying to play it safe, but then you want to retire at a very early age, you got to really consider there's a reality here. For you to think that you can have a zero risk tolerance, almost zero risk tolerance, and then retire early, it's unrealistic. Now, don't get me wrong, always luck. There's always that you invested in the right thing at the right time, and that's always magical. And so that could happen to you, but that's just like going to the casino and hitting the jackpot. Sometimes it happens. I always laugh when I hear that those shorts or YouTube things or the Instagram reels where they say if you invested in Microsoft in 1984, if you invested just $1,000, you would have $1.2 million now. And I just think it's so unrealistic because number one, $1,000 back in those days was a lot. And then number two, like you would have, there is tons of tech stocks out there. There is Hewlett Packard, there is Bell, there was WordPerfect, there's or Corel, and there's all. My point is, you had to pick Microsoft out of all these other tech startups. Xerox, for example, right? How are you going to know? And so my point is, it's unfair when they show those videos because it's always like hindsight's 2020. You only know it because you see it now. But back in the day, you wouldn't know Microsoft from any other tech shop like a Apple. They're all the same if you weren't into the tech world and you were just looking at it from the outside in. So I always argue when I see things like that, it's bogus. I'm not saying it's not legitimate, but it's kind of unfair. I'll give you a little story. I knew about cryptocurrency when I was doing a contract at TD Bank, and I knew about cryptocurrency. And I looked into it. I saw it at $400. And to me, and again, I'll be honest, just I don't know what I'm doing either. I looked at it, I'm like, what is this? Like, why would someone put money into a digital currency when we have a regular currency? Don't understand that. So then I looked in it. I'm like, I'm a tech person. So I looked into it. And yeah, I saw it. It was $400 a coin at the time. And at first, I was looking into how to mine it. So that was the big thing, to mine Bitcoin. So not necessarily buy it, but become a miner. And I researched it and I researched the heck out of it. And I realized that I live in Canada, the electricity is so expensive in Canada. People that are mining in, say, Japan, they would always win out because their electricity is less. And so I realized that, you know what, it probably doesn't make sense for me to mine it because of the electricity costs in Canada. And if you don't know about mining cryptocurrency, what it was is cryptocurrency, you give PC power of your computer, and then you connect your computer to the internet, and then you connect it to the mining or the blockchain that the Bitcoin is connected to or whatever. I'm not an expert in it. And then it'll use part of your PC power to mine and do calculations to hash currency and transactions. And if you do enough mining, you may earn a Bitcoin in the process of mining if your computer helps assist in a specific type of hash. So that's how mining worked. And so you earned coins through the use of the resources of your computer. So I initially did that, or I initially looked into that, realized I wouldn't work for me because of the cost of electricity in Canada. So what I did do, I was like, okay, well, maybe I could just maybe look into buying one or something. And so you had to go to Coinbase or Coin something, and I was setting it up, and it asked for my passport. It needed to validate where I lived. And this is the kicker. I remember it was saying something to validate you. We're going to email you something. And then when we email you, you got to provide the code and blah, blah, blah. And I remember I was putting it through, but then it wasn't recognizing my passport for a reason. It was giving me an error. And so long story short, I gave up. I gave up. It was so difficult for me to attempt to buy this digital currency or digital coin I knew nothing about. I didn't see any application for it at the time. And so it was difficult and I gave up and I'm like, you know what, forget this. And that's it. That's my story. I just stopped. I was like, this is ridiculous. I gotta wait for something to come into the mail. And then even when I'm trying to do that, it's giving me an error before I can submit it for them to send me the code for me to ultimately open up the Coinbase account for me to fund it with fiat currency and that's potentially buy a crypto or a Bitcoin for $400. And even then, I was thinking to myself, am I really going to throw away $400 for a coin that I know nothing about? And what can I do with one coin? Again, these are all things I'm thinking about back in, I think it was 2011. I don't remember when it was, 2015 or whatever at the time. And I was like, what am I going to do with one coin? It's $400 of my hard-earned money, and they're making it so difficult, so I gave up. And then I also looked at the research of how Bitcoin worked and how if you lost your wallet, there's no way to get it back. And I thought that this isn't going to work. People are going to lose things all the time. To have something where you just lose it forever and you'll never get it back if you lose it, that's unrealistic. So those are all the things that I was thinking about with Bitcoin. Anyways, like getting off topic, but I thought that would be a good story for you guys to understand, so for you to hear. But yeah, I was all on the Bitcoin. I knew about Bitcoin when it was 400. And then I'll never forget, I think I saw it on the news. It said Bitcoin is $10,000 a coin. I was like, what? I was kicking myself. I was like, oh my goodness. And even then, I'm stupid me. I should have bought it then. But then I was buying houses. I wasn't in a position to really buy anything more. And that's another thing. a little tidbit. I don't do too much. So to keep my sanity with respect to my finances, I typically only do one thing at a time. Yes, some might say it's not ideal. You should always kind of carpe diem, seize the day. And in some sense, I do see that. I do see value in that. But for me, I think my mental acuity and my mental stress is important. And so I think at the time when I saw Bitcoin going up to 10,000 and everything, I was buying my second property. And so I just bought it and I was in no position to do any type of other new investment. I needed to just recuperate from this one because buying and investing houses, things like that, it's to me, it's mentally draining. So I needed to rest. So I wasn't in a position. And on top of that, I didn't know about Wealth Simple then, and I don't think back in those days Wealth Simple was a thing, and I don't think Wealth Simple did allow cryptocurrency to be purchased through their app. The reason why you see me talking a lot about Simple is simply because I like Wealth Simple. It makes things very simple. That's why it's called Simple. And so the trick is if tried to buy Bitcoin back in the day, you had to open up a wallet, you had to furnish that wallet with finances, and you had to really understand how to not lose your key and your hash with respect to your Bitcoin. And I just didn't have the time and the patience to really research it. So, long story short, let it go. And then I think 3 years later, Bitcoin was now at 40, 70,000. And again, at that time, Wealthsimple did allow you to purchase crypto, and that's when I actually got into crypto. So it was really just when Wealthsimple had it available, to be honest with you. Anyways, back to the main thing, time horizon. The important thing here is be realistic with respect to your goals and when you expect to leverage or use this investment and what you want to do in the future. So that's really what it comes down to when it comes to time horizon. And then with respect to time horizon, you want to also set your goals. I think goals are very important. And I think it's important to have realistic goals. I think some people have goals or are pie in the sky, unrealistic. And I think it's important that you do a litmus test of who you are, what kind of person you are, what your family situation is, and be realistic in terms of what your expectations are of your financial investments and your financial goals. And sometimes this is where, if you notice, I'm giving broad information. I'm not giving you very specific information. Why? It's because I need you to do the research. You need to put in the work for your effort. It's sort of like me teaching you how to raise your child, right? I could give you some high level advice, but at the end of the day, only you know your kid, only you know your relationship. So you need to invest in that. And so it goes right back to what I was saying. We invest in our relationship, we invest in our children, but do we really invest in our money? I argue sometimes we don't. And so you need to do the research and understand things. Obviously, message me if you are confused on a topic like what's a TFSA or what's an ETF, and I'll definitely talk about it. I'll give you more guidance. But the point of the matter is you need to do the research on your own. Take the initiative. Show yourself, mentally prepare yourself. Like practice. So no one becomes an amazing baseball player or basketball player just from pure talent. Definitely pure talent works and helps, but Steph, LeBron, they all go to practice. So for you, you need to practice your mental agility with respect to finances, and it starts with doing your own research, right? Taking what I'm doing or taking my suggestions or my motivation, hopefully I'm motivating you, and going further with it, taking that to the next level. So setting goals are very important and something you got to really consider. And so some people would say creating an investment plan is important as well. To be honest with you, I don't. Here's why. I don't create an investment plan because my whole thing, and again, this is just how I am mentally, I don't want to go too far into and get too detailed with my goals because my fear is if I don't the goal, I might go into a bit of a depression state. I might go into a little bit of a, oh, it didn't work out exactly as I expected, and so I give up. I'm an introverted person. I'm so lucky I can do self-reflection, but I'm also an introverted person where I'm the hardest on myself. So I don't do investment plans because I just don't want to be disappointed or set myself up for failure. And again, I'm trying not to contradict myself. You have to have goals, but I keep my goals very light and very realistic. So, for example, one of my goals, very simple. For every child I have, I would like to have a house. That's it. Is that a plan? No, that's not really a plan. That's a goal, right? And so there's an old wise saying, I'm going to mess it up. Funniest joke is tell God your plan. And the reason being is because typically your plan and what God has in store for you or planned for you are completely different. I think having goals and setting goals and praying on those goals and leaving it at the altar and giving it to God, I think that's better because at least if you falter, you could always go to God and say, "Hey, I tried." And also, I like not having a specific strict plan because now if God needs to mold me or direct me in a different way, I'm more pliable, I'm more malleable because I'm not focused on my specific plan. So I'll be honest with you, I'm not big on plans. What I am big on is goals and high discipline. If I say I'm going to do something, I commit to it and I keep going through that with grace and help of Christ, of God, right? So that's my plan. Again, sometimes I look back and the things I've did, I don't know why I did it. I just woke up one day and I was just like, I want another house. I remember I had my house and everyone was selling. There's like every house was going up for sale. And I was like, well, if everyone's selling, why should I sell? And if I sell in this market that where the prices are up, then how is that really beneficial? It's not like a wash. So I'm selling my house at a very high rate, at a high price, but then I would then have to buy another house in the same market at an inflated rate. So to me, that didn't make sense. And again, it was just an epiphany I had, grace of God. And so I decided instead of selling like everybody, I am going to keep this house and take equity and then buy another house. It seems pretty elementary to me, but yeah, most people were like, "Are you crazy? Like, housing is as high and you should take advantage because it's going to go back down." That's what a lot of people's logic was. They were like, "This is a runaway train and take advantage of it because it's never happening again." That's why a lot of people sold it. I was like, I don't think so. I just didn't think it because I know assets or houses appreciate. And yes, we're in a bubble, it's gonna go down, but I don't think it's gonna go back down to 200,000, which is what I bought my first house at. And it was now valued at 500,000 at the time. So I just said, you know what? I don't know. I have enough. I live below my means, so you know what? I'm gonna take this and I'm gonna buy another property. And there's just so much that went behind that process. Not, I don't have enough time for this podcast to deal with it. But long story short, that's why I don't have plans. I never in a million years had a plan to buy multiple properties. I had a goal that I wanted to have multiple properties for my kids so I can give them a good head start or give them a decent start for the future. But that plan wasn't realized. It's not as if I wrote it down on paper, sell this house and or take equity out of this one and do this and do that. And I never had any plan like that. It was just organically. I didn't realize prices were so high at the property that I bought a few years ago. And I leveraged that situation and I just took a chance. And long story short, it's worked out quite well. I have another property or I have multiple other properties that I've done the same thing with. So long story short, plans I'm not really big on. But investment platforms and choosing a platform for your investment is important. So, of course, you know what I'm going to say. I like Wealth Simple. And again, I just think Wealth Simple is very basic and easy to use. So that's my investment plan. But if you look at the computer behind me, that's actually that is it. What is this connected to? I don't even remember. It's connected to I think Questrade. And so what I do there is I have a bot that runs and it does stock, it buys and sells stocks for me or Forex stocks for me automatically. And again, that's something completely separate from Wealthsimple. It's just something that I do as something to play around with. But it does investment for me automatically. I have a high-speed internet connection connected to it and it buys and sells stocks. I think it does, it only does trading for Australian dollar against British pound, I think. And again, it's a very low tolerant bot that I'm using. It's not making me a lot of money. I'm gonna look into it more. I haven't had time to really focus on it a little more to get a better bot or and heighten the risk tolerance. But yeah, my point is that's my investment platform. It's pretty much well simple. So I think that's about it. I'll stop it here. Hopefully you learned a lot, and I urge you do your own research and in the comments ask me questions. I'm definitely here to help, maybe answer some of your questions, but ultimately you got to do your own research. You got to get yourself immersed in it, just like how you invest in your family, your relationships. You need to invest in your financial matters as well. So it's something that I don't want to do for you. You should want to do it for yourself. Okay, that wraps it up. Thank you. See you in the next video or episode, and God bless.